you are not familiar with this service, because the church that I grew up in didn't hold Maunday, Thursday services. And any reference that was made to that night was always about the Last Supper. It wasn't until years later, when I went to a liturgical church for the first time, that I learned of this other part of that night, Jesus' commandment to love one another as he had loved us. It was the first time I heard about Jesus washing the feet of his disciples and saw anyone who actually washed people's feet in church. But every year since this time, this part of the Maunday Thursday service has taken deeper root in my heart and in my life. In this liturgy, we are given a choice different from other choices that we may have been given. This choice is about vulnerability, intimacy, love. For many of us, it may be more challenging. It makes many of us uncomfortable. And I am talking about not just the choice, but part of that being having their feet washed, as the disciples did that night. We find it scary to let down all our pretenses and to be so open, to allow this level of intimacy with another in public. For many of us, it's about our pride. After all, many of us do not find our feet to be particularly attractive, especially some of us with our corns and bunions and things like that. And some may have a problem, which is not their choice, but they have sweaty, smelly feet. And you know what that feels like when all of a sudden in a room, you've taken off your shoe and everybody starts trying to figure out what happened. We have to be able to trust to let go of our control. And yet we find it easy at the same time, and I don't understand this. We find it much easier to forget the vulnerability in the act of eating the body and drinking the blood of another person, Jesus Christ. But on that night, it's different. Maybe it's not so hard for us to forget about the intimacy because we're used to the Eucharist. You know, we do that every Sunday in this church and in many others. But we just get stuck on that stupid foot washing thing. Why is that? Both acts are acts of humble, vulnerable, self-giving love. We're not used to someone else washing our feet, and that somehow makes it much harder to make that choice. Now, in Jesus' time, things were different, and it was common practice to go into someone's house, have the servant or the slave wash their feet. It was dusty and they wore sandals, so of course their feet were quite often dirty. But even then, it was a problem for the disciples when they gathered for what would be their Last Supper with Jesus. When he himself stooped down and began to wash the disciples' feet, it went against all the social conventions of that time. Jesus was far too important a person, and he was their leader. But Jesus continued to wash the feet of the disciples with no exceptions. Peter couldn't even stop him. And we know that here he was washing the feet of Peter, the one who would deny him. We know that he washed the feet of Judas, who would betray him. And he washed the feet of every one of those disciples who, at the most critical moment in Jesus' life, when his enemies came and took hold of him, all those disciples ran away, lest they be caught and accused of something as well. They saved their own necks, I guess you'd say. By his example and command, Jesus showed us what is required of us. We are to remove the shoes and socks of others and to receive their feet and their lives into our hands and to wash. We are also to do the same, placing our feet and our lives into the hands of another and be washed. This is the way of Christ, the way of love, the way we show our deep love to one another. Jesus was showing them, and us also, the new way of giving the gift of himself, the gift of ourselves for others. Today is not just about choice to have our feet washed, to become vulnerable with another, but also about the more important choice, the choice to love or not love. And as Jesus chose not just to love some, but all, this must also be a part of our choice. We cannot choose to just love only those that we like, or those who are like us, or those who we finally decide or deem are worthy of that from us. No, it's simply an all or one choice we are called to make. If we do not love all, we love none. We're called to follow Jesus' example, to love and serve others by giving our all, giving ourselves away in love and service to all. Later that evening, Jesus will allow himself to be put into the hands of others in complete vulnerability, and will suffer and die for the sake of others. That deep, deep love of others. In his brokenness, he redeems all. Just like Jesus was broken in his humility, but also to feed us, to strengthen us, to assure that he would always have us with him. We too can choose to be humbly broken. Our pride is broken to learn humility. Our greed is broken to learn generosity. Our love, our complacency is broken to learn to continue to love and be vulnerable. Can the true work of Jesus and his love and humble service continue on in our very, very broken world? It's time for you to make your choice. Amen.
Amen.